guys. Tonight we are on week 2 of our series called The Exchange. The Exchange. And my main point throughout the next couple of weeks is going to be being a disciple of Jesus. Being a follower of Jesus is more than just making a sacrifice. More than giving up stuff in your life. It is an exchange for something greater. If you look at following Jesus as just you giving up a bunch of stuff, that's not what it's about. I don't think that was Jesus' mindset for us. I think that he's trying to say, hey, I have something better to offer you. I have a better life to give you. It is an exchange for something greater. Last week we looked at what the word exchange means, and we learned that it means to give, to transfer, or to hand over something for something in return. For something in return. And we looked at the book of Isaiah 53, God bless you. We looked at Isaiah and how 750 years before Jesus ever walked this planet, it was prophesied that we would have a Messiah that would come to earth and he would live a perfect life. He would not be a very pretty man, we learned that. He was not a very welcome man. They didn't want him there. He was rejected by the own people he came to save. And we know that was true, and Jesus did come and he lived a perfect life. Have you ever received something that you didn't deserve? You ever gotten something that you know you didn't deserve? And when I was in 7th grade, I remember leaving our class, going to lunch. And me and my best friend at the time, we didn't have the same classes, but we had the same lunch. So I remember getting into the cafeteria at Taylor Street Middle School. I remember going into the cafeteria and seeing my friend coming in from the other door. And I walked up to him. You know how guys do. You're just like, hey, man, what's up? And kind of slap each other on the shoulder. Not hard, but it's like, hey, man, what's up? It's not a high five. It's like a high five to the shoulder. And that's kind of what we did. It's like, his name was Ryan. I will never forget it. His name was Ryan. Like, Ryan, what's up, man? Kind of, And there's a substitute in there. And the substitute said, you two come with me. And took me to the office. And told, I'll never forget it, his name was Mr. Nash. He was our assistant principal. And maybe I should have mentioned his name. Right? Our assistant principal, he brought us into his office and wrote us up for fighting. He said that we were fighting, and that's against school policy. He called, I'll never forget this, because we were like arguing the case, like, no, we're best friends. Why would we be fighting? I walked up and said, hey, man, what's up? Popped him on the shoulder. We're dudes. What do you expect guys to do? And I remember him calling my mother on the phone, just sitting there and saying, look, I know your son didn't do anything wrong, but because of school policy, I have to give him 3 days of in-school suspension. And I was like, are you kidding me? And my mother had a home daycare at the time, and she actually kept the children of one of our other assistant principals. And so she's like a furious mother, as she should be. Like, why are you giving my son suspension when you admitted he did nothing wrong? He doesn't deserve what you're about to give him. And I remember her like waiting for that parent to come home to pick up their children, and she's like talking to this like parent who's also another assistant principal at my school, like, what is going on here? And it's just a big crazy fiasco. And I did end up having to serve 3 days of ISS. And I will never forget it, because every boy dreams of the day he gets to dissect a frog. That's like what you live for. You see it in the movies, you see it on TV. You can't wait for that one day you get to dissect a frog. And I had ISS the second day. My second day of ISS was the day we were dissecting frogs. My whole life, and I missed that moment. Thankfully, a little side note, tracing a little bunny trail here, a little side note, since I had like a perfect record, they did excuse me for like an hour and a half so I could go dissect my frog. I made a big stink about it. So sometimes though, life isn't fair. Perhaps you've had those moments where life isn't fair. You got something you did not deserve. You got punished for something that you should have been punished for. You just got the rough end of the stick. It was just, you didn't deserve it, but you received it. Today I want to talk about a couple of people. I want to talk about Israel, who also goes by the name of Jacob. He has 2 names, so please don't get confused today or tonight. It's Israel and Jacob, one person. All right? Jacob has a son named Joseph. We all know Joseph. I've talked about Joseph a couple times to you guys. To give you the really, really fast fast version of Joseph's life. Are you ready for this? Here it is. Joseph was one of 12 kids. He was the favorite. He was the youngest. He was the dad's favorite. Because he was the favorite, his dad gave him a coat of many colors. Because he had a coat of many colors and he was the dad's favorite, the brothers hated him. They hated Joseph, so they plotted to kill Joseph. Last minute planning, they decided not to kill Joseph. They sold him to a big group of Egyptians who then bought him as a slave. They took him to Egypt. Potiphar put his eyes on Joseph and said, hey, that's a pretty solid guy. That's a cool kid. I want him to be over all of my house, all of my stuff. So here's Joseph. He's a slave. He's over Potiphar's house and all of Potiphar's belongings. Potiphar's wife likes Joseph. She's like, hey, you're a pretty hot stud. Why don't we go to the bed together? Joseph's like, I don't think so. You're married. I'm not doing that. He ran out of the house. She grabbed the clothes off of him. She claimed that they did what they really didn't do, put Joseph in jail. Joseph's hanging out in jail. Joseph's hanging out with, I believe it was a chef and a butler. They're like, okay, what's up, Joseph? Joseph's like, nothing much. I interpret dreams. Oh, really? Well, cool, because we've been having these crazy dreams. Joseph's interpreting dreams. The next thing you know, the butler and the chef get set free out of jail. He's like, hey, guys, don't forget me. Well, guess what? They forget Joseph. 2 years later, they're talking with Pharaoh, and he's like, oh, I'm having these crazy dreams. Light bulb, hey, I know a guy that interprets dreams. Joseph, he's still in jail. We forgot about him. They rescue Joseph. He interprets dreams. Now he's second in command over all of Egypt, and his brothers are experiencing a famine. His family that sold him are experiencing a famine. They need food from Egypt. They're going to Egypt to get food. Have no clue that they're talking to the brother Joseph, who's actually rationing out the food for all the surrounding areas. That's a very fast-paced, very Cliff Note version of Joseph's life. All right? Joseph has 2 sons named Manasseh and Ephraim. This is very important information. They are half Egyptian. Joseph finds a very beautiful Egyptian lady, marries her, has 2 kids. Kids are Manasseh and Ephraim. They're half Egyptian. They're mixed. That's frowned upon in this day and age, okay? Joseph is relocated with his father. His father's name is what? Anybody remember? Jacob. What else does he go by? Israel. He's reconnected with his father, having a family reunion. And Joseph is meeting his father because he wants his father to give the double portion blessing to Joseph's 2 sons, Jacob's grandchildren. Everybody following me so far? Nod your head and say, yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. So Joseph has his 2 kids, his 2 little lads, Manasseh and Ephraim. He's going to meet his dad. His dad's going to deliver a blessing to his 2 children. A double portion blessing. And to understand what this is, do you know what a will is? If your parents left you a will, that means when they die, you get all of their stuff. That's kind of like what this is, except when he blesses you, you get this stuff immediately. You don't have to wait till anybody dies. This stuff becomes yours immediately. And this blessing goes to the firstborn only. It goes to the firstborn. And the blessing is always given with a right hand. If you're in here, are you left-handed? Anybody left-handed? I apologize. It's not my doing. It's biblical. They didn't like the left hand back then. Back then, you wiped with your left hand. That was your dirty hand. You got your left hand dirty. It's just you shook with your right hand. You were right-handed. If you got caught stealing, they cut off your right hand. That's your dominant hand. That is the hand they would deliver the blessing. All right? And so Joseph is taking his sons, mostly just Manasseh, to get his blessing. But he's letting the younger son, Ephraim, tag along. You know, it's kind of like when I was a child and we would have birthday parties in my family. The siblings always got a little something at your birthday party. Anybody else like that? Like when I was a kid, if it was my birthday party, say my 4th birthday party, my little brother and my little sister got a little toy too. So it's kind of like, hey, we love you too, but today's Daniel's Day. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how it was in my house. Kind of like, oh, well, we love you too, but we're going to put all of our focus on our other son tonight because that's his birthday. So we have this big moment happening. And Joseph's got his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. You're like, Daniel, you've said that 1,000 times. You've repeated their names. I just want you to remember their names. I want this to kind of sink in. And Ephraim's not getting a blessing. He's not getting anything. He's just kind of like, oh, yeah, we love you too. Just kind of make you feel important that you're there. That's kind of what Ephraim is showing up today. And that's where I want to leave off. We're going to pick up the scripture right here in Genesis. Genesis chapter 48, verse 13. If you have your Bibles and you don't know where Genesis is, very easy. It is the first chapter, the first book of the entire Bible, the 48th chapter in the Bible. Genesis 48, verse 13. We'll go through 20. It says this, if I can find it. All right. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim with his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh with his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near to him. I want you to listen to what's happening. That's very confusing, but it's a very important detail to the story. Jacob, he's very old right now. He can't see very well. He's pretty much on his deathbed. So they're kind of like visiting him in the hospital. You visited your grandparents in the hospital. They're getting kind of old. This might be one of the last times you see them. And you kind of go up to the side of the bed, to give them the hug. This is kind of like what's happening. So Joseph's walking up. He sees his dad. His dad is a very emotional moment. His dad actually says, I didn't even think I'd ever see my son again, let alone my grandchildren. This is a very special moment to me. And Joseph's walking in with his two sons, and it says that he takes Manasseh with his left hand and ushers him forward. That's important because if Jacob is laying in the bed this way, he's going to receive him with his right hand, which makes sense. Manasseh is the oldest son, and he's going to get the right hand blessing. And he says that he ushers Ephraim in with his right hand towards Jacob's left side. Joseph's got this moment planned out perfectly. This blessing's going to go. He's got all the details figured out. If I use my left hand to push him this way, nothing's going to go wrong. He's going to get the blessing. I put Ephraim over here. The pat on the back. We love you too, buddy. You just do your thing. You're good. All right. Manasseh's going to get the blessing. This is Manasseh's moment. Joseph doesn't want to mess this up. And listen to what happens right here. 14. Then Israel, or Jacob, stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, who was the younger. And God bless you. And his left hand on Manasseh's head, guiding his hands knowingly, for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph, and he said, God, for whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has fed me all my life long to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads. I love that word, lads. It's like old-timey. Let my name be upon them, and let the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude into the midst of the earth. Verse 17. Now, when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. So he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father, Not so, father, not so, dad, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, that he also shall be great, but truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations. I want to kind of describe what's happening here. I told you, I gave you the lowdown on what was supposed to happen. Joseph ushered the boys in just where they should be. And as soon as he ushered them in, he took a knee and he bowed down to earth, like he's about to pray. Jacob, the grandfather, instead of doing what normal people would do, oldest son, right hand blessing. Youngest son, just good job, kid. Keep being cool. He crossed his arms and gave the right hand blessing to the younger brother. Do you get what's happening here? He gave the right hand blessing to the youngest brother. He crossed his arms. And Joseph, I believe, was peeking during this prayer. You ever done that? I remember in kindergarten, I will never forget this. I had my little cup of juice and my little orange fish crackers. You know what I'm saying? The goldfish. And we're saying our blessing. And I remember his name was David. I'll never forget David. He was praying. No. Another kid was praying, but I looked up and David didn't have his eyes closed. And that was my pet peeve in kindergarten. When you pray to God, your eyes are closed. So I raised my hand. Miss Ann and Miss Karen were my teachers. And I said, Miss Karen, David, which is Miss Karen's David's mom, like, Miss Karen, David's eyes were open during that prayer. And I want you to know that's disrespectful to God. She's like, Daniel, how did you know? Well, I guess my eyes were open too. You caught me. All right? So Joseph's peeking during this prayer. Like his dad's praying, Joseph's peeking up. He's like, you had one job, Dad, to bless Manasseh, and you crossed your arms. And Joseph says, Dad, this is not so. This is not how it's supposed to happen. You're doing it wrong. And it says he even tried to pick up his dad's hand to fix it. Like, you're doing it wrong. Let me show you how to do it, Dad. You had one job simple, is to let your hand down and you crossed your arms. How do you mess that up? And he tried to move it. I don't know if you ever tried to move your dad's arm before. Like, my dad had the strongest arms. Whenever he would hold on, I'm like, Dad, move your hand. He wouldn't. It's like massive muscle. And this is what happens. Like, Dad, what are you doing? You're doing it wrong. And Jacob's like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I did this on purpose. I told you this story because I want you to know this. Ephraim got something he did not deserve that day. The oldest child always got the blessing. The firstborn was always supposed to get. Do we have any firstborns in here today? Am I the only? We got a couple firstborns. If you're a firstborn, you are awesome. And I'm proud of you being here because you're strong, because life was horrible for you, because you got blamed for everything. You had a tough life growing up if you're a firstborn. I know it. I couldn't do anything. I didn't know what grass was until I was 4. My parents wanted me to do nothing. You're my firstborn. I'm not letting you get hurt. Ephraim's the youngest. Youngest don't get anything. I'm sorry. If you're the youngest in here, we love you, but I'm sorry. You just didn't get nothing. The oldest got it all. The oldest got it all. But Jacob crossed his arms. Because of that cross, Ephraim got what he did not deserve. Thousands of years later, because of a cross, you and I get what we don't deserve. See, there's an exchange that happened. Jesus knew we didn't deserve anything. In fact, Romans says that because we are sinners, we can't help it. Because we are sinners, you and I deserve hell. We deserve separation from God. Because God's perfect and holy, he can't hang out with sin. And you and I have sin, so we can't hang out with God. But God wanted us in his home so bad, he was willing to send his only son for us. Jesus made an exchange on the cross. He said, I'll give you guys something. I'll give my life if you'll give me your life. I'll die for you because I love you. And I think that this story that we just read in Genesis tells us that. We didn't deserve that. See, Manasseh and Ephraim, I told you earlier, they were mixed. They were half Egyptian. They weren't full-blooded Jew. This was crazy. This story is unheard of. It may not mean nothing to you right now, but back in this day when this was written down and this took place, this was crazy. They were filthy. They were contaminated. They were mixed. They weren't full-blooded Jew. You don't do that. You don't give them blessings. You don't give them anything. You just don't do that. And that's you and I. We are contaminated. We are filthy. The Bible calls us filthy rags, so we are not worthy. John the Baptist, he was John the Baptist he went baptizing. He baptized Jesus, and he said, I'm not even worthy to unloose Jesus' sandal. But he loved it so much, he was willing to make an exchange. See, when I was in high school, I ran track. I know that's hard to believe. Short white kid, what do? I started off by throwing shot put and discus. Even more hard to believe. I wasn't very good at it. I was at a track meet. And they had an open mile. And that means that anybody that wanted to run could run. You didn't have to be signed up for the event. It's open for anybody. And in fact, most coaches use that to punish their students that were doing bad in school. They would make them run the mile. I went to my coach, Coach Smith, and I said, hey, Coach, can I run? My friends all ran distance. He said, son, you throw things. You don't run. I said, I know, Coach, I'm slow, but my friends are running. Can I run with them? He says, go ahead. He let me run that day. I wasn't any good. I came in last place. My first mile was a 6:45. To him, that wasn't decent. So he told me, all right, son, on Monday, you're going to run with the distance team. Worst decision in the world because they run a 9-mile course that day. Chasing a truck. Yeah, I was about ready to quit. But I continued to run, and eventually, I won something. A ribbon for 6th place. This is the only thing that I have to show for that year that I contributed to. I won 6th place in a 4x1 relay. I didn't even run the race by myself. I shared it with 3 other guys. I passed the baton as a relay. It's the only thing that I won. But our track team was really good. Really good. We were 3A, meaning we were a very small track, a very small school. But we would compete against 5A track schools, which means they were bigger and better schools. We won every track meet we went to, and then we won region. We are the Region 4A champions, 2007. Region 4 AAA champions. Been so long, I don't remember.
What is it?
It's track. It's a patch on a Letterman jacket. I don't even have a Letterman jacket. I didn't even earn a letter. This is useless. I was one track meet away from actually qualifying for a letter. But I'm a region champ. To tell you how bad I was, I competed at the region champion track meet in the 4x8, which was 4 guys that ran 2 laps. We ran 800 meters. We sprinted half a mile. And it wasn't even a real event. It was just a guinea pig. Like, if it worked this year, we'll use it next year. That's how bad I was. I didn't contribute at all. I was part of the team. And because my team was a region champ, or region champions, I can call myself a region champion. I didn't contribute. I didn't really do much. But I was part of the team. I was part of that family. And that's how I view this, the cross. We are not worthy to go to heaven. We are not worthy anything that Jesus did for us. We're sinners. We make mistakes all the time. But because we're part of that family, because he loved us and he gave us that gift, the gift of grace and salvation, mercy, we're right with God. And we have a bridge to get to heaven. The band was going up and about to wrap things up. Do you know what I had to do to become a region champ?
What hall?
Just be on the team. I went to track meets, I did stuff with them, but that didn't make me I was part of the team. That's why I'm a region champ. Nothing to brag about if you think I'm bragging.
I felt good.
In Spalding High School. But because I'm part of the team, I could call myself, I walked around school proud. Like I did something. Yeah, that's right. I got 6th place out of 32 teams. You're looking at a region champion, like, move the halls, get out of my way, I'm a region champion. I walk up to my locker and like, you guys want to back away? I'm a region champ. I showed up to school that first day back, like, who wants to carry my books? didn't do anything to be a regional champ. I got my picture with the team because I was part of the team. All I had to do was accept that. To be a part of God's family, all you got to do is accept it. Be part of it. Have that relationship. I want to read this verse to you really quick. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 1 through 7. I want to read this through two different translations. It says this. New King James Version. Verse 1. And you, talking to you guys, and you, Kyle, you, Rachel, Daniel, Bethany, Octavius, little G, Daniel, and you, he made alive, who were dead in trespasses and sins, in which you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now works for the sons of disobedience, among whom also we all once conducted ourselves in the lusts of our own flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, just as the others. But God, I love those but God moments. But God, who is rich in mercy because of his great love, not because of anything you've done, not because of any work that you've done, but because of his great love, in which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespass, even while we were sinners, even when we did not deserve it. He made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved. And he raised us up together and made us sit together in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus, that in the ages to come he might share the exceeding riches of his grace and his kindness toward us in Christ Jesus. We can't get ourselves to heaven. You can't be good enough to get to heaven. God sent his son Jesus to die on a cross so that we can make an exchange. We can give up our old life for a better life, for a life with Christ. Something we did not deserve. You and I have been given something we don't deserve. See, Jesus got what he didn't deserve so that you and I may get what we don't deserve. If you don't hear anything else tonight, hear that. That Jesus got what he did not deserve so that you and I may receive what we do not deserve. The Message translation says it like this. It says, it wasn't so long ago that you were mired in that old stagnant life of sin. You let the world, which doesn't know the first thing about living, tell you how to live. You filled your lungs with polluted unbelief, and then you exhaled disobedience. We all did it. All of us. We all did what we felt like doing when we felt like doing it. All of us are in the same boat. None of us are better than anyone in this room. It's a wonder God didn't lose his temper and just do away with all of us. Instead, I love that word, instead, immense in mercy and with an incredible love, he embraced us. He took our sin-dead lives and made us alive in Christ. He did all of this on his own with no help from us. Then he picked us up and set us down in the highest heaven in company with Jesus, our Messiah. the one that walked this earth perfect. He's never done anything wrong. But instead, we got that blessing. We've been offered that blessing. Will you accept that blessing tonight? Will you accept that relationship with Jesus